1045 The Team, your home for New York Yankees baseball, and thanks to our friends at Techie's Fire and Water Restoration, your best way back to normal. Visit them online, tefirewater.com. Buster Olney joins us right now. Now, Buster, I'm gonna dump you right into hot water here because I know you've got friends on every side of this. But what is the scenario? Like I've seen headlines that the Yankees beat ESPN and everything else with this Sunday night baseball game. What was your take from it all?
Well, one thing I think that's worth remembering for all this is that ESPN doesn't make the schedule. Like the schedule is a process that's negotiated by Major League Baseball and the Players Association. So it's been interesting to see the ways that some of it's portrayed. I never at any point lived in fear that Aaron Boone wouldn't speak with me. Let me get that on the record right now. As someone who worked with him for a lot of years, know Brian Cashman for 20 years. I never lived in fear that he wouldn't talk with me. CC Sabathia, Sonny Gray, Aaron Judge, they're all great pros. Beyond that, in the specifics of it, I'm going to pull a complete weasel move because I'm a private in my Army, and I'm going to defer conversation because there are generals who should be talking about this and not me.
Okay, that's well said, Buster. Can I at least ask this question, like for those that may not have...
You can ask whatever you want. You may not answer it.
Okay, fine.
Right. David Cohn used to laugh at other Yankee players when they would be upset about questions being asked. Said, hey, they can ask anything they want. You can say anything you want. They can ask you about your pitching, and you can talk about spaghetti.
Can you at least give the fans here in the Capital Region a perspective of when these decisions are usually made? Like, when do they give you the schedule that you know when the game's going to be?
Well, going into the season, they schedule roughly 2 months of the season. And then I want to say I heard about the Yankee-Toronto game about a month ago, but that's all based on, that starts with the conversations with the Players Association and MLB. Like all the parameters for how games are chosen, in many cases, Major League Baseball has recommendations because, of course, they want to see a lot of different teams on air. They want to give their product. So it's not like ESPN just sits back and in January goes, this is how we're going to nail all these teams. Like all of that has to be that none of the games can be scheduled without approval from MLB, the Players Association.
I just pictured like Mickey Mouse because Disney being the parent company. I'll teach MLB.
Right, exactly. It's a bit amusing.
Oh man, I was telling guys yesterday, like if you had an axe to grind with the Yankees are bullies. If you had an axe to grind with ESPN lost the battle.
Oh well.
Right. Okay. I said, that was what I said, not what Buster said.
Yes, he loves ESPN.
All right, let's have fun with this now. Last night's Yankee game, historic, is the first time ever. I believe I heard the Yankees and the Blue Jays go 9 scoreless innings, both teams. But the Aaron Judge kid, Buster, like is he not an example of everything that's right with this game?
That was tremendous. And it reminds me of a moment a few years ago. I'm sure you guys remember this too, when Andrew McCutchen, at the end of a game, there were 2 fans, I believe it was in San Diego, who were wearing Pirates jerseys. They're like 9, 10 years old, and Andrew McCutchen, after the last out is made, runs out to them and hands them batting gloves, and then goes and joins the handshakes at the end of the game. And the expression on those kids' face was exactly like that kid last night. How happy was that kid?
Was awesome.
And, quite frankly, based on my experience, I had him beat because when I was 10 years old and went to Exhibition Stadium in Montreal, I went to that ballpark wanting an autograph from only one player, Willie Davis, a former Dodger. And in the 7th inning of the game, because I was an idiot and didn't know players didn't sign autographs during the game, ran down to the edge of the dugout as Willie Davis came off from center field. Mr. Davis, can I have your autograph? And he reached up and signed my ball.
That's
awesome.
In
the middle of the game. How crazy is that?
One of these days, I will cry in my beer and tell you about my Ricky Henderson experience. Buster Olney with us right now, 104.5 The Team, your home for Yankee baseball. Buster, great stories last night. Pitchers duel. Judge hits the monster home run. Stanton hits the second fastest velo whatever home run. But I think being lost in a lot of these storylines is Sonny Gray looked as good as he's looked in a Yankee uniform for me.
100%. He was attacking hitters. And look, he's had success recently against less than the best teams in baseball, and it will be interesting to see when he faces the next time the Red Sox or the Astros or one of the better offensive teams, how his approach is. But doesn't it feel like in watching that game, like someone got to him and told him, look, man, your stuff is great. Like, your fastball moves all over the place. Stop nibbling. Like, there's no reason for you to nibble. Attack the hitters, because it felt like last night he was absolutely in attack mode. You could see his level of excitement, the way that he was interacting with CC Sabathia and other players during the course of the game. It felt like for the first time, and I agree with you, Sonny is from a very small town outside of Nashville. He's a very easygoing guy, and there have been times when it's felt like, it's Sonny Gray in the big city. Well, last night, Sonny Gray was part of the big city with that outing.
It's funny you bring up CC, because if CC can learn to get people out with an 88-mile-per-hour fastball, what's going on with Sonny Gray? You know what I mean? So seeing those two together was awesome.
Well, and knowing CC's personality and how he can make fun of himself, it wouldn't surprise me in the least if that's what he was saying to Sonny Gray. Hey, dude, I would love your stuff. Are you kidding? Go after hitters. What are you doing there? I am going to be curious because we have as you mentioned, we have the Yankees and the Mets on Sunday Night Baseball, and I'm going to be curious to hear from the Mets or Yankees people about, okay, what were the conversations that took place with Sonny Gray in recent weeks? Because it does feel like last night he turned a corner.
Well, with the Yankees-Mets series on the way here, we touch on who possibly could be leaving the Mets and going to the Yankees. Buster, should the Mets be picking up the phone and talking about some of those pitchers on that roster?
Absolutely, they should. And let me preface all of what I'm about to say by saying this. I don't think this is going to happen. I think there's no chance this happens. But if the Mets continue in their current trajectory, this older team that's struggling to score runs, and by the way, at the time they finished the game on Wednesday, they had 7 runs in the span of a week. 7 runs in the span of a week. There were 8 individual players across Major League Baseball's landscape that had more runs scored than the Mets' entire team. If they continue to play this way, then absolutely they should be calling other teams and having conversations and at least saying, hey, if we have DeGrom out there, if we have Syndergaard out there, what are you going to give us? And we've seen so many examples in recent years of how you can reset quickly by making the big trades of guys who have Major League service time, who are potential impact guys. And if the Mets need an example of a team that benefited from that, they can look across the field this weekend, because it was 2 years ago that the Yankees flipped Aroldis Chapman for a guy named Gleyber Torres and others, and they flipped Andrew Miller, and they got good prospects, and they bolstered their farm system. That's absolutely what the Mets should be doing. And on top of that, they should be having a conversation with the Yankees. The old school guys would say, would never trade our best player to one of our rivals. Billy Beane, is probably as progressive a general manager as there has been in the game over the last 15 years, has said 1,000 times, I don't care if I trade into my rival. All I care about the pieces are that I get back, and if they make me better sooner, then that's the team I'm going to trade with. That's how the Mets should view this. They shouldn't care whether or not Jacob deGrom is in a championship scrum in the Bronx this fall. They should care more about who are the guys going to be in our championship scrums over the next couple of years. And the Yankees, without a doubt, probably are the most motivated potential buyer in the market for starting pitching. And they happen to have as good a group of prospects as anybody. If you get back, and I'm making trades on my own here and making requests on my own, but if the Mets get Miguel Andujar, okay, and they get a Clint Frazier, and they get 2 pitching prospects in Double-A, who cares what Jacob deGrom does at that point? You have completely reset your lineup.
That's a haul, too. Yeah, I mean, Buster, it's funny. I was just thinking this. Buster Olney with us right now, 104.5 The Team, brought to you by Techies Fire and Water Restoration. With everybody making the jump to front offices, have you ever considered a job, being a general manager for the Mets? I think Mets fans would take you.
Thank you. Says the Yankee fan, right? This is like a Manchurian Candidate thing. Stop it, Levac.
I love Cashman right now, or I'd recruit you for us.
We had a stretch for, 3 weeks in a row, Levac. We had Field Yates on. We're like, Field, how about this week? How about this week to be a GM? How about this week to be a GM? Well, Buster, you stay there at the ESPN side of it. I know you have a column out now about what's going on involving the bullpen and a potential rule change you think may help Major League Baseball.
Yeah, and I want to make this clear. This is something only proposed by me. Book Shambi, who I work with at ESPN, was on my podcast the other day. He called me an idiot when I suggested it to him. I think that Major League Baseball should strongly consider going to a limit of 4 pitchers per 9 innings, with obvious exceptions built in for injuries and for blowouts. And here's why. I think, one, and we've seen this growing parade of relief pitchers, and there are more pitchers being used than ever now. That is absolutely diminishing the role of the starting pitchers. And the starting pitchers need to be the man. They need to be the headliners. They need to be the marquee guys. Levac, when you wake up in the morning and you say, boy, should I go to the Bronx? Who's pitching today? That conversation has been going on for generations.
Right.
They need those guys to be important. And by coming up with a limit like that, you restore the starting pitcher and his preeminence. And the other thing, too, is we've been talking in recent weeks about the incredible explosion in velocity. The number of pitches, 96 miles per hour plus, has more than tripled in 4 years. And that's because teams are breaking out 1,000 relievers. They're telling them, throw as hard as you can and we'll get you out after a few batters. They need to do something to help the hitters. And if you have pitchers stay in the game longer, then naturally there will be a shift of advantage potentially to hitters who are getting blown away. We know this by the exploding number of strikeouts. So I think that would be a way to go. I think, it would certainly swim upstream against tradition in the last 25 years. But you know what? It would also make for some really interesting in-game decisions on managers. When do I take the starter out? When do I use one of my 3 lifelines, so to speak? How should I save those for the 8th and 9th inning? Can I get an extra batter or 2 out of CC Sabathia to save the reliever? I think baseball needs to do something like that. And let's face it, too, it would also help pace of action because you'd have fewer pitching changes.
Buster Olney with us. Buster, you talked about, looking at the starting pitcher when you go to the ballpark. That has always been a thing for me. I'm finally getting my kid to her first Red Sox-Yankees game on June 30th. So,
nice.
Yeah, so she's 14. I think she's finally ready to hear the words that are said at a Yankees-Red Sox game.
Well, I like that, and look, I don't know if your daughter how big of a fan she is. She's sort of a casual fan, but I guarantee you this: if the Yankees were doing what the Tampa Bay Rays have done, I don't think that you could sell your daughter on, hey, you know what? Let's go watch Sergio Romo start in the first inning and be followed by 8 relievers as opposed to, hey, guess what? Luis Severino is pitching against Chris Sale. That's what sells.
She'd have us at New York Yankee Steakhouse at about the 3rd inning. That's how fast she'd be out of there. Buster, we know you're doing Mets Yankees this weekend, and we're looking forward to checking that out because I'm hoping they pull one of those deals where like Matt Harvey walked across the diamond and Desirocco walked the other way. So Mesoraco. So I'm hoping we get DeGrom right then.
Yeah, there's no chance of that happening, and there's 100% chance. There's 100% chance when I do my in-game interview that Aaron Boone may say something snarky to me before we start about whether or not he's going to talk to me.
That's must watch television. Buster, man, we appreciate you.
There you go.